Hi, everybody. My name is Carl Darden, and I'd like to welcome and thank all of you for joining us today on Navy Sports Central. I'm your host, and this is the official podcast of the Navy Sports Nation, where we take a deeper dive into Navy sports. It's already the middle of February, and that means we're definitely in crunch time when it comes to the Army-Navy Star Series. I'll have a complete breakdown for you in our sports update, including my take on how the remaining games and matches might play out. And in our deep dive segment, I'll be joined by Navy women's swimming and diving coach John Morrison, who is busy getting his team ready for the Patriot League championships next week. All that plus our question of the day and mid-watch segments are coming your way next, so stick around. We'll be getting things started shortly. All right, it is great to have you with us here on Navy Sports Central. Whether you are a regular listener or new to the podcast, thanks for taking the time. Today we're going to kick things off by taking a look at the Army-Navy Star Series. As you all know, February is the shortest month of the year, but it's also the month where the Mids go head-to-head against the Black Knights in the most number of sports. The total number of sports in the Star competition is 26, and 7 of them take place in February. So clearly this is a critical month when it comes to determining the overall winner. Whoever wins February has a pretty good chance of coming out on top on the overall series. Going into the month, Army led 6-5 with one tie in men's soccer. The first 1 to 13 wins this year takes the competition because of the tie. Normally, it would take 14 wins. And on February 3rd, there were 4 stars up for grabs. So let's take a look at each sport in the order in which the teams competed. First up was the rifle team. They traveled up to West Point for this match. And going in, the Black Knights led the overall series 47-35. But the Mids had won the last 2 in a row and 4 out of the previous 5 matches. They were all pretty close, though, so it was really tough to predict this one. One thing that was a virtual certainty, though, was Navy's Marley Duncan having a strong performance. The junior from Wake Forest, North Carolina, was the highest scorer in each of the Mids' 2 previous star wins, and this year was no exception. She posted a score of 589 points out of a possible 600 in the small bore, and then she followed that up with 595 points in the air rifle, which was good for a total of 1,184. Now, as far as the scoring goes, the top 4 individual scores in each category count towards the overall team total. And it was the Mids' performance in the air rifle that allowed them to get the separation they needed. They actually grabbed the top 4 spots overall, with Isabella Baldwin and Clarissa Leyland putting up 596 points each. Then came Duncan with 595, followed by Deontay Hayes, who came through with a personal best of 594 points. The final score was Navy 5896 and Army 5863. Now, the interesting thing is that the scores were program records for both teams in the Star competition, so it's a real testament to how hard these athletes compete against each other. Now that the rifle competition was completed, the overall Star Series was deadlocked at 6-6-1, at least for the next couple hours anyway. Right about the time that the rifle competition was winding down, the men's track and field team got things going against Army at the Wesley A. Brown Fieldhouse. Joshua Boma, who is a senior from San Diego, California, put up the first 5 points for the Mids by winning the weight throw. He did that with a school record of 21.12 meters, which breaks down to 69 feet, 3.5 inches. And by the way, I'll give you both sets of units, too, just in case you like the English units better. By the way, Boma's throw broke his own record by 1/10 of a meter. Also, Colin Green placed third, tying his personal best of 20.12 meters, which is about 66 feet, 1/4 inch. Boma pulled down 5 more points by finishing first in the shot put, and he did that on his 6th and final attempt. His distance of 18.71 meters broke a school record that had stood for over 50 years, and it was also a new personal best by 1/2 a meter. Incidentally, that 18.71 meters translates to 61 feet, 7 3/4 inches. In the triple jump, Jordan Payne and Sebastian Allen finished 1-2. Payne posted a jump of 14.59 meters, which is 47 feet, 10.5 inches, and Allen was right behind him, coming in at 14.42 meters, or 47 feet, 3 3/4 inches. Both of those efforts came on their final attempt as well, so they're kind of saving the best for last there. On the track, Bramir Vick got a terrific jump out of the blocks in the 60-meter hurdles and never looked back. He beat his own school record by 0.02 seconds with a time of 7.74. And just to give you an indicator of Vick's dominance in this event, he now owns 9 of the top 10 times in Navy track and field history. Vick also won the 60-meter dash with a time of 6.83 seconds, which is 5th best in program history. By the way, before I go any further, I want to give a quick shout out to Maura Kent for passing along all these details of the events I'm covering. Maura is one of the admins of the Navy Track and Field Fans Facebook group, and those of you who listen to the show may recall that she was a guest last summer when we featured her son Nathan, who plays football in addition to running track. Now, all that makes for a very nice segue into these next 2 events, because the mid-strong performance in the sprints continued, with Nathan picking up the double in the 200 and 400 meters. He was a little dinged up during football season, but is in excellent form now. Kent's time of 21:22 in the 200 set a new meet record by a tenth of a second, and he also clocked in at 47:45 to win the 400-meter dash, and that qualifies as the fifth best time overall in the program. The mids also pulled off sweeps in the mile and 3,000 meters, with Sam Keeney and Murphy Smith picking up the wins there. When all the dust had settled, the final score ended up being Navy 101, Army 78. It was their fifth straight win over the Black Knights indoors, and now the mids finally had the lead in the Star Series for the first time all year. It was 7-6-1 in their favor. Now it was the women's turn to take the track, and right about the same time, the gymnastics team was getting ready to square off against the Black Knights over at the Halsey Fieldhouse. Like the men, the women dominated in the sprints. Sophomore Gia Anderson won both the 60-meter hurdles and the 60-meter dash with times of 8.36 and 7.53 seconds. Both were new school records. And she also finished second in the 200 meters. And by the way, that time of 24.18 seconds was also a school record. The mids completed a dominating performance in the sprints by finishing 1-2 in the 400. Annie Lemelin and Taylor Woodworth put up times of 55.39 and 55.44 to pick up a total of 8 points in that event. Ellie Abraham won the 800 meters, and the 400-meter relay team of Susanna Hines, Lexi Enzer, Mia Claire Cazal, and Kayla McGuire turned in an outstanding performance. They broke the old meet record with a time of 9:05.25 to finish in first place by an amazing 13 seconds. And by the way, just to give you a little perspective here, their winning time converts to roughly an average of 34 seconds per lap. That means that the 13-second margin of victory translates to about 76 meters, give or take a half a meter or so. That means when Kayla McGuire crossed the finish line, the Army runner still had half the final turn plus the entire straightaway in front of her. So yeah, I'd say that was a pretty impressive win. The women also won 3 field events. Elena Schroeder finished first in the pole vault, clearing a height of 14.01 meters, and that translates to 13 feet, 1 3/4 inches. Sammy Bollinger took the top spot in the triple jump with a leap of 12.01 meters, or 39 feet, 5 inches. And Hannah Lowenstein took the long jump with a winning height of 1.71 meters, which comes out to 5 feet, 7 1/4 inches. The final score was Navy 99, Army 82, and it was also the 5th consecutive star the women had picked up, which increased their lead in the Star Series to 8-6-1 overall. Shortly after that result posted, the gymnastics team made it 4 for 4 on the day by beating Army for the 6th straight year. But things did not look good going into that meet. Navy's All-American Isaiah Drake was hurt in practice the day before, so the mids were already down their best all-around gymnast, and the meet hadn't even started yet. It didn't seem to bother them one bit, though, because the team won 5 out of 6 rotations, coming out on top in the floor exercise, pommel horse, rings, vault, and high bar. The individual winners were Siembur de Gunta and the floor exercise. He is having a terrific year, by the way. Also, Riley Rose took first in the rings, as did Caleb Hickey in the high bar. You know, there was a time when the gymnastics star meet was practically an automatic win for the Black Knights. Early on in the rivalry, Army won 19 out of 20 between 1949 and 1969, but things started to change in 1983 when Navy Athletic Director Bo Coppage hired Peter Corman. Corman was a bronze medalist in the 1976 Montreal Olympics. He led the program for 6 years and was a perfect 6-0 against the Black Knights. Over the last 40 years, Navy holds a pretty impressive 28-12 advantage. Now, Army does still lead in the series. The score there is 45-41 with 2 ties. But the fact that the deficit is only 4 now pretty much tells you the kind of hole the mids were in when Corman was hired in 1983. Current coach Kip Simons has a 7-1 record in the star meet, so Navy could pull even before too much time goes by if they continue to perform at this high level. The gymnastics win increased the mids' lead to 9-6-1, but Army was not going to go down quietly. They ended up winning both the stars in men's and women's basketball. And last night in wrestling, the mids got edged out 18-17. And I got to tell you, I thought they got robbed in that one because in the very last contest at 149 pounds, Navy's Kamen Smith looked like he had pulled off a great upset by pinning his guy, but the rest just didn't see it that way. A pin would have given the mids enough points to put him over the top, but unfortunately that didn't happen and they came up short. So now this year's competition is tied up at 9-9-1 with 7 sports to go, and you can count on the rest of the Star Series being a dogfight from here on out. Now, I'm not in the prediction game here because I'm way too superstitious. Besides, we all know that the records don't matter when it comes to Army-Navy. So what I am going to do is point out the sports where I think the mids have the best chance of coming away with a win. And remember, they need a total of 13 to clinch the series. I'd have to say that the best opportunities for the mids to pick up a couple of wins in the spring are in men's and women's outdoor track. Coach Jamie Cook always seems to have both teams ready to go, and I don't expect this year to be any different. Both teams are also a little stronger outdoors because of their depth. After track and field, I'm kind of leaning towards men's tennis. Navy has won the last 2 Patriot League championships there, and they've also won the last couple of star matches against Army. Of course, I get that you can throw the record books away in these situations, but Army is coming to Annapolis this year, and the Mids are pretty tough to beat on their home court. Now we're up to men's and women's lacrosse, and quite frankly, both of those are a coin flip. Let's go ahead and start with the men first. On paper, Army probably has an advantage. They won the Patriot League last year, but the same could have been said in 2021 and 2022. They had a strong squad in each of those 2 years, and the Mids pulled off the upset both times. Also, Navy's got something to prove. Last season, they were kind of wrecked by injuries, so if they can stay healthy, this group of seniors led by Xavier Arline and Jackson Bonnets, they have got a great opportunity to go out strong, and one way to do that is by picking up a big win in their last star game. On the women's side, Army's also returning a pretty good team. Last year, the Mids lost a heartbreaker to them in double overtime in the Patriot League semifinals. And the Black Knights have won the last 2 star games, although Navy did beat them in the 2022 Patriot League tournament. So they got a little bit of payback there. Anyway, as far as the star game goes, the women are due. So that and the fact that this is a home game is the reason I give them a decent chance of winning this one. And I will be there to watch that game, so hopefully I don't jinx them. Now, if Navy doesn't pick up a star there, the women's tennis team will have their shot at Army. And here's another situation where both teams are pretty even. After the Mids won the star the last couple of years, Army did come back to beat them in the Patriot League tournament. So again, it's another coin toss here. One sport where it might be a little bit of an uphill battle for the Mids is in baseball. I'm not saying it's a done deal, but if they were to come away with the star against Army, I think it would be a nice bonus. Chuck Restano is the new Navy coach, and the Mids do return 5 starters, but they also lost their top 2 hitters and their number 1 pitcher to graduation. The star in baseball is decided by playing a 3-game series. Last year, the Mids were unable to get into the win column in any of those games, and they were outscored 24-6. So it'd be pretty nice to erase that memory by pulling out a win. Okay, that takes care of our fairly comprehensive sports update, but please don't go anywhere because our deep dive segment is next, where we'll get an up-close and personal look at the Navy women's swimming and diving team. Stay with us. In our last episode, I had a great conversation with Navy men's swimming and diving coach Bill Roberts. I hope you all had a chance to check that out because we got a good look into not only one of the elite programs in all of Navy athletics, but also the entire East region. And you can say the same about the women's program as well. They've won a total of 21 Patriot League championships, including the last 10 in a row. So it's only fitting that we follow up our visit with Coach Roberts by welcoming the women's coach. He is in his 20th year leading the program and has compiled an impressive dual meet record of 168-44. He's also been named the Patriot League Coach of the Year 7 times. So I am very happy to have Navy women's swimming and diving coach John Morrison join us today. Okay, so Coach Morrison, it's really great to have you here with us on Navy Sports Central. Thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you for having me. It's awesome to be in our sport of swimming. We don't get to highlight it too often, and it's great of you to recognize us.
Okay, well, no problem at all. Believe me, I can tell you that when it comes to the sports I used to watch in the yard, I did see my share of swim meets, and they were really a lot of fun to watch.
Awesome.
So one of the things I noted, and I kind of mentioned this when I was talking with Coach Roberts a couple of weeks ago, the Navy swimming and diving program for both the men and the women has been a model of consistency for decades. And you've been a big part of that because of the stability you bring, having been there for 20 years and so forth. So what I want to know is, in the time that you've been there and you have, just different athletes that come through the academy year after year, certainly you want to stay true to a certain model that you have to keep that level of performance up. But are there any things that you've had to adapt to over the years to keep things fresh, recognizing that athletes change over time?
Yeah, I think our training has adapted quite a bit over time. Just the scientific approach to rest and fueling the body and those things have changed so drastically that it's a lot different than before. But on an individual, I think every class comes in with their own personality. I think they all come in from different areas of the country. So our team has a very good way of pulling each other together to support one common cause, just like the United States Naval Academy, or just kind of a smaller microcosm of that.
Okay. All right, cool. Now, another question I have kind of along those lines is when you look at how your team is performing over the course of a season or even the course of a couple of seasons, are there any specific things that you look for or certain things that you identify as potential red flags that indicate, okay, maybe we're getting a little bit into a rut here? How can you guard against that? And how do you steer clear of those things?
Great question. I think we have to read the athletes on a daily basis. And the interesting part of my position, because I teach and coach at the same time, so I teach swimming, and then I coach in the afternoon, and obviously through the varsity program. So I get to, the midshipmen as a whole kind of follow the same type of biorhythm as they go through in any given year. It may be dictated by leadership, and maybe just the attitude in the hall, and to be able to see that in the classroom, and then also kind of witness it and pay attention to some of the, maybe a negative vibe coming from the classroom. They're a little bit run down and beat up in the classroom, just coming over once a week. We can certainly see that happening to our mids as well. So taking a lot of cues from the general midshipman population, and then also moving that into in our program. Some of the things that we look at for, just body language, attitude coming over to practice. Fortunately, we have a very good value system, and we've been fortunate to have people grow up in the program and respect those that came before them. So a lot of legacy that holds to some of the true values that we sustain in our program. And one of them is maintaining a positive atmosphere and ask questions, communicate. So open communications between the coaches and the athletes to not only see how they're feeling on that day, but also what can we do as coaching staff? What can we do to help support you to get better as an individual or as a team? And it's one of the great leadership points of our program here at the Academy across the yard is having input and having the student athletes actually be a part of the solution. So given that, empowering in that position and allowing them to help make adjustments really kind of hopefully yields hitting that big slump at any given season. And hopefully we can get ahead of the curve that's coming.
Right. Okay. All right. So now I kind of want to move into the game day or the day of the meet, atmosphere. One of the things I've always been curious about is, that you and your staff and of course the team, put together a plan, a strategy that you're looking to execute during the day. And once the day gets going, maybe things don't track according to the original plan. I'm sure that happens all the time. So my question is, first of all, can you give us an idea of what you and your coaches are doing after the meet has gotten underway? And then secondly, what might a contingency plan look like if you had a race or two that just didn't go as you had anticipated?
Yeah, another good question. This is so a lot of coach prep goes into meet preparation in terms of where we can put people, what the abilities are of the other team. So there's a lot of research from the other teams. The nice thing about our sport, it's all time related. So you can see where you're going to, for the most part, you can see where things are going to line up. You don't know who's going to be missing from your opponent, but you know who you might be missing due to injury or illness. So you have a good idea of how to set a lineup, and then allow the team to know what that lineup looks like. And also, if there are adjustments from event to event, we don't hit an event quite the way we would like, we can make those switches. We've already have it kind of game planned out as to, okay, this is what we're going to do to switch out this person later in the event, in the meet list, and hopefully gain a little bit more leverage on the overall meet outcome.
Okay. All right. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I didn't actually see you when I was watching the Army-Navy meet, but I was listening to Rowdy Gaines, and he said that after the very first relay, when you guys touched the wall first, he was like, "Oh, Coach Morrison is just like really fired up," So I imagine a good amount of that time you spent, in addition to just looking for those times when you have to make some adjustments, is just supporting the athletes out there as they are competing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's to keep their confidence up and motivate them to help them come up with the best race or best possible case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The Army Navy meet is a little different than most. The emotions are high, and it's not. We almost, as coaches at that point, have to control the emotions
Mm-hmm.
more so than allow them just to feed off them. I was more emotional, I think, than most of our athletes at times, but I think that's a good thing because they're controlling them. I'm not. No, I was excited. That first relay is certainly one in which you can really judge a lot from that first relay because it's a medley relay. So you see your top swimmer in each discipline: the backstroke, the breaststroke, the butterfly, and freestyle. And if you're competitive or you're winning that first event in the medley relay, you kind of can see the cards a little bit later in the session as those events come up as an individual events. Those folks hopefully will shine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So speaking to the Army Navy meet in particular, obviously, anytime you compete in a duel, there's a certain level of intensity. But you and I both know that when it comes to Army, that's just a whole different stratosphere. So the thing that I find is interesting, and I kind of had a little conversation with Coach Roberts about this as well, is you got freshmen out there who 6 months previous, they were just high school seniors, having a good old time. And 6 months later, they're competing against Army and seemingly they're unfazed. And I'm pointing to somebody like Ella Habyan, who led off your 200 medley relay and had a really strong leg in the backstroke. She won the 100 backstroke and looks like she won the 200 backstroke as well. So when it comes to what you've seen over the years with your freshmen performing, have you seen any differences in terms of how they handle this kind of pressure? And if so, what do you attribute that to?
Good question. I think some are. I think everybody's a little bit different because we do have some freshmen that might be a little green at the national level, or that feeling of it's on my shoulders. But one of the things that our team does a pretty good job at is helping each other find their own success. So they help each other encourage, motivate, and know that if there is a down swim or a not so good swim, they're going to be they have their back regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a nice sisterhood in that regard in terms of setting them up. But I think the overall, I do think the young folks today, I say young, much younger than I, but the differences tend to be, I think they are aware of their surroundings a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be social media, maybe just the way they're teaching in high school or the way their club teams and their high school teams are happening. So they're a little bit more aware that can be a distraction or very good. And in terms of Ella's case, she is a talented athlete, and she was able to do some incredible things. She broke a league record in her first Army Navy meet, fastest than anybody has ever gone in our league in the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty incredible. And you have those level athletes that just know on game day they are just excited to go out and perform. And the environment at the Army Navy meet, like you said on the front end, that's upper echelon, as Rowdy Gaines called it. It's one of his favorite meets to come to, just because of the excitement and just the sheer emotion of that meet on both sides of the pool deck, from the Army side and Navy side. It is incredible. I mean, I've competed in ACC matchups, UNC UVA or UNC Duke, and at Tennessee, when I was coaching there, we go Tennessee against Georgia or Florida, and it was a huge matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no level of just understanding what the other opponents are going through, and that you just want to beat your counterpart on that day,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that for the rest of your life you're going to be standing shoulder to shoulder.
Right. Okay. So this past Army Navy meet a couple of months back was the closest that it's been with the women since you've been there. And I was wondering if you could identify the one race that kind of, once it was over with, you said, okay, we've got a little bit of breathing room here. I think we have the separation we need to close things out. First of all, which race was that? And can you give us a little bit of a recap?
Yeah, so I think the medley relay was huge. I always feel, I think every coach feels a little bit more confident coming off that relay. Like, okay, we're in a good place as a team, being able to compete. Knowing that they had some good distance swimmer, Molly Weber up front in the 1,000, and they had two very good 200 freestylers. I look to those next two strokes. Ella coming back in the 100 backstroke, performing very well with Megan Murphy, who's been very solid for us, but she stepped up to a different level on that day. And then our breaststrokers, and then our two flyers came through as well. So I think that those three events right after the 200 freestyle, as soon as we got through them, that was okay. We are solid. We're going to keep this meet close, and what's going to be the separator. And our sprinters stepped up that day huge. Our two seniors, Maya Novak and Anna Freeman, in the 50 freestyle, and then Maya Novak and Hannah Pratt in the 100 freestyle. They kind of really solidify. I knew at that point when they came back and they both went personal best times in the 100 freestyle, I knew that we had a good thing going. And then that just followed up with Ella's and Gabby Baldwin's 1-2 finish in the two back.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I wasn't breathing a sigh of relief, but I knew we were in a good spot to be able to move through. So it was about halfway through the meet that happened.
Right. Okay, good. So in the post-meet interview, you spoke to the energy in Lejeune Hall. And before I continue, I want to throw out something I'd heard years ago when I was watching this special on when the U.S. hockey team beat the Russians at the Lake Placid Olympics. And they're interviewing Al Michaels, and he was describing what it felt like when they got the go-ahead goal with about 10 minutes to go in the game. And he said the place was just unbelievable. He said that's one of those times when sound had a feel to it, you know? So with that in the back of your mind, can you describe what it's like on the day of the Army-Navy meet, just, after an exciting race, or like, for instance, after that medley relay? What is that like?
Yeah, gosh, it's surreal. You train for a year. You're recruiting for 2-3 years to get to that point of competition, and you have environment that is in Lejeune Hall is packed to the rim. We got 1,000 seats. All seats are full, and people are standing in the vestibules and along the windows and on deck. And it is electric when you feel it. And even Mr. Gladchuck, who's been to many of sporting events, said it's one of the most exciting events they go to and experience is just that whole hype for that first initial send off of the relay. You get right now I'm getting hair standing up on the back of my neck. It's just so exciting, the emotion of your team and the folks being on the other side of the pool, and just everything's such a high level of focus and concentration and excitement that it is electric.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly is electric, and you just feel that energy throughout. And fortunately our team came away with a win this year. You said it was the closest one in years, and it was a tight one, and we're going to still have to fight for some more. So
right.
It's always fun. It's always fun, but that the energy in that the facility, and even talking to Rowdy after, who's been at every Olympics for the last 15 Olympics.
Sure.
And he even says that it's one of the most electric environments he's ever been in, because there's so much pride on the line,
right,
for your whole team.
Right. Okay, this is going to be the last question. I'm going to basically ask you to think about, you got the Patriot League championships coming up in less than a week. Basically, you start on Wednesday. What are your two top priorities when it comes to making sure that your team is as ready as they can be to defend that title?
I think setting a tone of confidence that we put in the work for the years is our real big top priority. And these next couple of workouts that we go through, it's kind of race prep and mental prep for those races, and allowing the mind to kind of just allow the body I should say, allow the mind, allow the body do what it's been trained to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do a lot of race prep in the last few days, just kind of growing that confidence going into the meet. And from a coaching staff point of view, well, that day to day, those 2.5 hour practices, we're working on that. But then, we just came out of a meeting with my assistant going through our day to day, every 15 minutes, what we're going to be doing to make sure that we have them fed on time, back at the hotel on time, sleeping on the right time, and given everything that we can control, trying to take all those variables that we can control and make them the absolute best for them. So it's giving them the confidence, controlling what we can control, and just having a lot of fun going down the stretch. There's a lot of smiles when we start to rest.
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing. When your group, you talk about creating a positive environment. I mean, those athletes look like they're having all kinds of fun, when they're competing. So that's really, really cool to see. And I will tell you this: it's times like when I was watching the meet on ESPN Plus. It's times like this where I wish I didn't live in Arizona. I wish I was, within a stone's throw of Annapolis, so I could make it there for those meets. But thank goodness that we have the streaming available, so I can at least be there in spirit.
Well, we appreciate your support. There's no doubt about it.
Right. Okay, Coach, we're going to go ahead and close things out from here. Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I know how busy you are, considering what time of the year it is. So I really appreciate it, and best of luck as you guys go out there to defend your title next week.
Well, thanks so much for having me and supporting our programs. And come back to Lejeune Hall soon. Yeah. The 10 meter is still open.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Coach.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a short break now. But before we do that, I did want to give you all a couple of ways to stay up to date on Navy sports. The first is to join the Navy Sports Nation group Facebook page. I've got a link to that in the show notes. Just click on it, answer a couple of questions, and you'll be good to go. The second way takes even less time. Just hit the follow button on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast right now. It can be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It doesn't matter. Once you do that, every episode will be downloaded to your directory when it's released, and you can listen to it whenever you're ready. So please consider becoming a member of our group, and you can actually tap that follow button right now to show your support for the podcast. I'm looking forward to having you join us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Navy Sports Central. Carl Darden here with you, and I'm still laughing a little at Coach Morrison's reference to the 10-meter platform at the end of our deep dive segment. For those of you who may not be as familiar with the requirements at Navy, every mid has to take a semester of swimming each year. And sometime during the final year, all seniors have to jump off the 10-meter tower. So when Coach Morrison made that reference, it reminded me of a story I'd heard just a few years after I graduated. I'm not sure what year it happened, but the guy who told me the story said it involved someone from his company. This guy was down to his last couple of weeks of the semester, and he still hadn't done the tower jump. So, of course, the anxiety started to kind of build up because he couldn't graduate without checking that box. Now, when his company officer, who happened to be a Marine captain, got the word that one of his mids was in a tough spot, he stepped up and actually offered to do the jump with the guy as a show of support. So the next time he had PE, the mid told his company officer, and he met him there at Lejeune Hall. They both climbed up the tower, and the captain says to the mid, "Okay, this is just a walk in the park. We'll jump together at the count of 3. So he starts to count. When he gets to 3, he jumps. The mid doesn't. The mid is still standing there on the platform. Marine goes into the water. He climbs back out, heads back up the tower, slightly annoyed. All right. And he sees the mid who's still not looking all that confident. This time the captain takes him by the elbow and tells him once more that they're going to go on his count. So when he gets to 3, the captain jumps, but the mid pulls his elbow free at the last second, and down goes the Marine for the second time. Now he's supremely ticked off. He comes out of the water, squaring up a storm, and in a blink of an eye, he's making his way back up the tower again, ready to unload on this mid who clearly hasn't appreciated his leadership by example. Then at some point before he got to the top of the tower, the captain hears a splash. And then when he got up on the platform, he sees that the mid had finally jumped. So I guess the mid's momentary fear of heights was nothing compared to the fear of facing the wrath of an angry Marine. That story makes me laugh every time I think about it. By the way, I do have one more Navy swimming and diving note. Both the Patriot League championships and the ECAC championships will be held in Annapolis at Lejeune Hall. So if you've never had a chance to check out a Navy swim meet, I highly recommend you get out there for at least one of those two. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. As I mentioned before, the Patriot League championships start on February 21st, and the ECAC championships begin on the 29th. All right, now it's time for our question of the day. And like we always do, let's go ahead and check out the responses to the question from our last episode. Here was the question. Coach Bill Roberts has led the Navy men's swimming and diving team to 19 Patriot League championships. How many East Coast Athletic Conference championships have they won since he became the head coach? Is it A, 7, B, 11, C, 13, or D, 15? The most popular answer was C, 13 championships. There were 66% of you who went with that choice. And then there were 26% of you who said 11 titles. And finally, 9% of you decided on A, 7 championships. So it turns out that the correct answer was C. The Mids have won 13 ECAC championships under Coach Roberts. That includes the last 9 in a row. So congratulations to those of you who came up with that answer. Now let's take a look at our question for this episode. In addition to winning multiple league championships, Navy women's swimming and diving coach John Morrison has also developed a number of swimmers who have qualified for the Olympic trials. How many have gone to the trials under his direction? Is it A, 6, B, 9, C, 11, or D, 12? You can take some time to think about that one. And if you want to reply back, you can do so by going to the Navy Sports Nation Group Facebook page. I will have it posted by the end of the day. All right, now let's go ahead and roll into our mid-watch segment and see how our two athletes are doing. First, we've got Zanai Barnett-Gay, who plays guard for the Navy women's basketball team. She continues to impress as the season goes on. A couple of weeks ago, she was recognized as the Patriot League's Player and Rookie of the Week for the second time this season. She averaged 19 points and 8.5 rebounds per game in the 2 wins over Colgate and Lehigh. The Mids record is 5-7, and they are currently 9th out of 10 teams in the Patriot League. But don't let that fool you, because they are only 2 games out of second place with 6 games to go. The league standings are very bunched up, with only 3 games separating 1st through 9th place. Barnett-Gay leads the team in minutes played, points, and rebounds. She is also the team leader in steals. Now, considering how young this team is, I've got to say that I've been really surprised, and pleasantly surprised at how much they've improved since the beginning of the season. They started 2 freshmen and 3 sophomores in their last game versus American University and won by a score of 69-55. And led by Zanai Barnett-Gay, they're only going to get better over the next couple of years. Now let's check in with Austin Benini, who plays guard for the men's basketball team. He is a sophomore, and unfortunately, the team has really hit a rough stretch of road lately. After beating Army at home back on January 20th, they've lost 7 in a row, including the Star game last weekend. Unfortunately, Army won it at the free throw line after their player got fouled on the Black Knights' final shot, and he hit those 3 free throws to give Army the win. I did see some slight contact on the shooter's non-shooting elbow as he was coming up, but the refs were letting a lot worse go during the game, so I was a little surprised they made that call. Anyway, it was a tough way to lose after coming from 9 points down with 5 minutes to go. The Mids had actually taken a 1-point lead going into that last play. Benini did get 11 points in the Mids' most recent game to lead the team in scoring, but they lost by double digits at home to American. No one shot the ball all that well, so let's hope they can shake off that shooting slump in time to move up in the standings in the next couple of weeks. Benini is still the team's leading scorer at nearly 16 points per game, and if the Mids do start hitting more consistently from the field, it could open up things more on offense where he can get to the rim more frequently. That's where Benini's at his best. That's going to do it for this edition of Navy Sports Central. Thank you all so much for joining us. Now, if you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit that follow button wherever you get your podcasts, and remember to get the word to all the other Navy fans out there. Once again, I'd like to thank Navy women's swimming and diving coach John Morrison for joining me today. It was great getting a closer look at one of the Academy's truly elite teams. Our question of the day continues to be a show favorite. You can get in on that by joining the Navy Sports Nation Group Facebook page and giving your answer to this week's question. I will pin it to the top so you don't miss it. And just a quick reminder, the views expressed on Navy Sports Central are my own and do not reflect those of the U.S. Naval Academy or Navy Athletics. By the way, the music used in Navy Sports Central comes to you courtesy of Audio Jungle. This is a great site for purchasing the rights to use the music from thousands of artists around the world, and those featured in the podcast will be credited in our show notes. Talk to you soon, everybody. Until next time, this is Carl Darden. Go Navy, beat Army.